candidates, will you recommend the Job Guide 360 interview guide to prospective job seekers?
Sure, I will. The guide is detailed and very comprehensive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're trying something a bit different. We're giving you what feels like an operational shortcut.
Yeah. How so?
Well, you've handed us this really interesting stack of core interview questions for an assistant operations manager, an AOM specifically, at a high-growth startup.
Okay. I see where you're going.
And we're going to use them as, like, a blueprint.
Right. Because these questions, they're not just, HR ticking boxes. They're actually a very direct, structured look at what these top-tier employers really value in an ops leader.
Exactly.
They basically reveal the frameworks you need, the kind of quantitative language they expect you to speak, and the specific mindset required. How to turn that rapid growth, which, let's be honest, often looks like total chaos, into something predictable, something scalable, performance you can count on.
So our mission here is to really distill that structure and that data-driven way of thinking that separates, the operator who's just busy putting out fires from the one who's actually building something great.
Mm-hmm. Decoding the DNA.
Decoding the DNA of modern operational excellence.
Yeah.
The core insight, really, that our sources seem to reveal is that this job, it's fundamentally about turning these messy, ambiguous problems into repeatable, reliable solutions. Let's unpack that. Okay, so when you look at that first block of questions, it jumps right out. They don't just want answers. They want to see your method, how you think.
That's right.
So part one here is all about structured problem solving. Let's say a process is underperforming. What's the expected first move?
The expectation is immediate rigor. They want to see structure right away. When interviewers ask about analyzing underperformance, they're listening for candidates who immediately bring up a recognized framework, like DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Or maybe a lean approach. The point is, you have to start by establishing a clear baseline metric, something measurable.
Right. It's basically the scientific method, but applied to, say, the warehouse floor or the customer service team.
Yeah.
You got to define the problem with hard data first.
Exactly. If you can't measure it, you really can't fix it.
Makes sense.
And then, once you have your measurements, your data, you move into the analysis. Root cause analysis. Our sources really emphasize a structured sequence here. First, maybe use something like a Pareto chart. Analyze the data, find that 20% of drivers causing 80% of the grief.
The vital few.
The vital few. And then you use the famous 5 whys technique to really drill down, get past the obvious symptoms.
The 5 whys. That's crucial, isn't it? Because it stops you from just, slapping a bandage on the symptom and forces you to find the actual system breakdown.
Totally.
But let me ask this. When you're in the thick of it, operational weeds, running a super fast-moving business, how hard is it to actually stick to that process and, avoid just blaming the person who made the last mistake?
Oh, it's incredibly difficult. That's the reality. But that's where real leadership shows up.
Yeah.
The framework itself kind of provides the guardrails.
Right.
It forces you to focus on the system, not just the individual. And when you structure the fix that way, the results tend to stick. They're durable. The example that popped up in the sources was perfect for this. Using exactly this structured approach led to cutting rework by a very specific 28%.
Wow, 28%.
Yeah, and in just 6 weeks. Mentioning that kind of specific quantified result, that really demonstrates competence to a hiring manager.
Yeah, that number talks.
Yeah.
Okay, so sticking with digging for root causes, the material had this brilliant, really specific example about product returns. Something about a packaging mismatch. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, that was a textbook case. So there was this sudden spike in product returns. They used the 5 whys to trace it back.
Okay.
Initially, it looked like, poor packaging.
Yeah.
Seems obvious.
Right.
But they kept asking why.
Oh.
Digging deeper, the root cause turned out to be a supplier change that happened months earlier. It resulted in a slightly different packaging spec, which nobody had updated in the receiving protocol.
Oh, wow. So the fix wasn't just buy better boxes. It was actually updating the whole system.
Precisely. They updated the specification document, they added a mandatory check during the inbound receiving process, and they retrained the team on the new protocol.
And the result?
It was pretty remarkable, actually. The return rate dropped dramatically. It went from 7% all the way down to 2.1%.
It's huge.
Huge. And that saved the company an estimated $12,000 every month.
Wow.
So that's why hiring managers hammer on frameworks. They translate directly into these lasting financial and efficiency gains.
Got it. Okay, so we've talked about fixing things when they go wrong. What about creating order from the start? This seems like the constant battle in fast growth places. How do you create standard operating procedures, SOPs, from scratch without completely bogging the team down, making everything slow and bureaucratic?
Yeah, that's the balancing act. You have to master the art of lightweight documentation. Speed and consistency, they're often in tension. The expected approach here needs to be collaborative and fast. First step, actually shadow the workflow. Understand what people are really doing, not just what the old process doc says they should be doing.
Capture the reality on the ground.
Exactly. Then you capture just the critical steps, maybe the 80-20 that really drive the outcome. The goal is a concise SOP, often just one page.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And the critical next step is involving the doers, the people actually doing the work to validate it. Say, does this make sense? Is this actually how it works?
Get their buy-in.
Get their buy-in and then run a quick short pilot, test it out before you try and roll it out everywhere.
Okay, that avoids that classic mistake, right? Creating some massive 50-page binder that just gathers dust on a shelf.
Precisely.
So what was the payoff, the quantifiable result for doing SOPs this lightweight way?
Well, it significantly cut down on friction. According to the source, this method reduced onboarding time for new hires by 35%.
35%, nice.
Yeah, and crucially, without adding that heavy red tape feeling that just kills agility in a startup, it's really the definition of scaling efficiently.
That efficiency gain is great, but efficiency only really matters if you keep the lights on when things go sideways. Yeah.
True enough.
So let's pivot a bit to part 2.
Yeah.
Making decisions under fire. Let's tackle prioritization first. Because the universal truth in startup ops seems to be everything is urgent. How do you handle that?
This is where you really see disciplined leadership shine, or where it needs to. You just cannot operate based purely on who yells loudest or which fire seems biggest.
Right.
The sources really emphasize needing a rigorous scoring system. Candidates have to be able to describe using something like an impact effort model, but importantly, it needs to be modified.
Modified how? What do you mean?
You have to layer in the risk factors. So, for example, you absolutely must factor in SLA exposure, like how close are we to breaching a key customer contract? Or are there regulatory requirements involved?
Okay. So it's quantifying the actual stakes, not just how hard it is or how much someone wants it done.
Exactly. Quantifying the consequences.
I can see how that process alone would instantly cut through a lot of the noise. But okay, if you're the AOM, you still have to manage the expectations of people whose pet projects didn't make the cut.
Absolutely. And that's where transparency comes in.
Right.
The prioritization model itself, being clear and data-driven, is what allows you to explain why something isn't getting done right now. It helps manage those stakeholder expectations without it becoming, a big argument.
Makes sense.
And the data showed that by actually implementing and sticking to this kind of model, one team was able to stay focused and delivered a 15% throughput increase.
Wow, with the same team size.
With the exact same headcount, just by working smarter on the right things.
Okay, let's talk about the real operational nightmare scenario. That sudden high growth spike, let's say order volume doubles just for a week. A massive demand shock hits. And there is absolutely no extra staff available, can't hire anyone fast enough. How do you triage that? How do you protect quality immediately?
Yeah, this really tests an operator's ability to think on their feet. Immediate triage is just non-negotiable. First, you have to prioritize the incoming orders, probably by revenue or maybe SLA sensitivity, which customers are most critical.
Okay.
Then you ruthlessly shift every non-urgent task out of the way. Things like, quarterly reporting, non-essential maintenance projects, gone for now.
Clear the decks.
Clear the decks. Then you look at temporary measures. Can you cross-train some staff quickly? Can you offer voluntary extended hours? Maybe just for that week.
And the really smart operational move here involves managing the flow, not just trying to handle the sheer volume.
Right, precisely. You have to introduce a simple WIP limit, work in progress limit.
Explain that a bit.
Well, if you just let everything flood into the system, too much inventory waiting, too many open tickets piling up, the whole thing just clogs, quality craters, and actually nothing gets done quickly.
Right, gridlock.
Gridlock. By limiting the WIP, you ensure that whatever you start, you can actually finish cleanly and quickly. Maintain some flow.
Okay, that makes sense. And how do you handle the customers? because there's going to be some disappointment, inevitably.
Proactive communication is absolutely the key buffer there. You have to inform sales and customer support immediately about what the adjusted ETAs, the estimated time of arrivals, are likely to be.
Be upfront, really.
Upfront. And set a strict cadence for updates, maybe twice daily status reports, something like that. It prevents panic and manages those customer expectations transparently, even if the news isn't great.
Okay, let's shift from crisis mode to the day-to-day. Data. The AOM is often the key translator of operational data into action. What are those essential must-know day-to-day KPIs that employers expect AOMs to own and use?
Yeah, you absolutely need to know the core metrics. The sources point to about 6 key ones. Throughput, obviously. Cycle time, how long things take. SLA attainment, are we meeting our promises? First pass yield, are we doing it right the first time? Backlog age, how old is the stuff waiting? And of course, cost per unit.
Okay, those make sense. But just knowing the metrics isn't enough, right? It's about showing how they actually drive decisions.
Exactly. That's what they want to hear in an interview. How did you use the data?
Can you give us an example, maybe data that signals take action now?
Yeah, there was a great case in the material involving backlog age. So the team noticed the average age of their open work orders was starting to spike up.
Okay.
Now, overall throughput might have looked okay, but this indicated there was a persistent delay, like a handoff problem between two departments. Stuff was getting stuck.
So new orders were getting processed quickly, but the older stuff was just lingering, getting older and older.
Exactly. And they used that backlog age spike as the trigger, the call to action. They resequenced the work queue specifically to prioritize the oldest items first, broke through that bottleneck.
And the result?
It directly improved their on-time delivery metric from 88% up to 96%. And quickly, too, like in just 2 weeks. That spike wasn't just a number on a dashboard. It was a leading indicator of potential customer frustration.
That's a great example. Operations often rely on outside partners, too. What about supplier issues? If a critical supplier suddenly fails, maybe they go bankrupt or have a major quality issue, what separates the immediate gotta-do-it-now actions from the longer-term strategic fixes?
Good question. The immediate reaction is pure triage and survival, right? First, you activate that backup supplier you hopefully already identified.
Hopefully.
Then you immediately resequence any orders that are affected by this. And you communicate the new ETAs out to sales and support. That's just keeping the lights on, surviving the immediate hit.
Okay, survival mode. What about the long term?
The long term is where the learning happens, or should happen.
What's the learning?
Well, after the dust settles, you absolutely must look at diversifying your vendors proactively. You can't be reliant on just one critical supplier. Maybe increase safety stock for those components you now know are vulnerable. And, crucially, you update your risk register. Do a proper post-mortem.
Right.
You have to treat that failure as, frankly, invaluable data to help you harden the supply chain against the next disruption, because there will be one.
Good point. Okay, one last thing in this section. The reality, especially in startups, is you rarely have perfect, clean data. It's often messy, incomplete.
Yeah.
How do you make a high-stakes decision when the numbers aren't telling you the whole story?
Yeah, this really tests judgment and risk tolerance. The required approach seems to be triangulation.
Triangulation?
Yeah, you use what you do have, maybe directional metrics. They don't give you a precise number, but they tell you if things are trending up or down. You combine that with small, focused data samples you might be able to pull quickly. And you rely heavily on input from the frontline teams. What are they seeing? What's their gut feel?
Okay, so gather what you can, but then you still have to decide.
Right. And the real operational finesse here, according to the sources, is making a reversible decision with clear thresholds.
Reversible decision.
Yeah.
Meaning you commit, but you build in an exit strategy from the start.
Precisely. You make the best call you can with imperfect info, but you define upfront. If we see X happen, or if metric Y drops below Z, we roll this back. You move fast, collect real-world data quickly from the decision, and create fast learning loops. If the early signals show you're heading the wrong way, you pull back before the consequences get too big or too costly. It's about prioritizing fast learning over perfect, slow planning.
Okay, so moving beyond just managing the internal ops team, a really great AOM has to be a bit of a master diplomat, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
They need to influence core teams like product and engineering to, say, build the tools or fix the bugs that ops needs, even though they have zero direct authority over those teams. How do they win that kind of battle?
Yeah, that's a classic challenge. The only way you consistently win those battles really is by using data as your diplomat, your ambassador.
Data again.
Data again. You don't go over there pitching a solution you want or asking for a favor based on how much pain your team is in. You frame the problem using hard data and, crucially, quantified financial or customer impact. You basically show them the cost of inaction in terms they care about.
Let's revisit that success story from the source material about the manual data entry. That seems like a perfect illustration of this.
It really is. So the operations team, they quantified this massive 12-hour average lag in their process cycle time.
12 hours.
12 hours. And they specifically traced it back to the manual data entry required between two of their core systems. So by framing the problem with that specific 12-hour figure and also the associated error rate that came with manual entry, they successfully made the case to engineering, they partnered up, built an API integration, and that single automation project, it cut the overall cycle time for that process by 40%.
40%.
And reduced the errors by 70%. It worked because the data translated the operational pain into something engineering could understand and prioritize.
That's a huge win, driven by data. Okay, let's talk tools more generally. Startups, high-growth companies, they're constantly rolling out new lightweight software, right? For inventory or ticketing, project management. What's the sort of pragmatic way to select and roll out a new ops tool without causing massive disruption or picking the wrong thing?
Yeah, you need structure, but not like rigid dogma. The key steps seem to be, first, clearly define the must-have criteria. What does this tool absolutely need to do? And do that with the people who will actually be using it day to day.
Get user input early.
Critical. Then shortlist maybe 3 viable tools that meet those must-haves. Don't try to boil the ocean. And then run a focused, maybe 2-week pilot program.
Which is 2 weeks. Seems short.
Because you need to measure results fast. You're looking for hard metrics. Did it actually save time? Did it reduce errors? And you need rapid feedback from the actual users during that pilot. Is it intuitive? Does it actually help?
Makes sense. Quick feedback loop.
Exactly. And the source material also emphasizes appointing some internal champions early on. People on the team who are excited about the tool and can help drive adoption with their peers.
Okay.
This kind of practical, user-focused approach, when it was implemented, according to one example, cut the handoff time between teams by 22%.
Nice. Okay. I want to talk about something that feels a bit like the unicorn of operations. Finding cost savings that also manage to improve the customer experience. That feels counterintuitive, right?
Right.
Usually cost-cutting means, well, cutting things customers liked.
Yeah, that's the common trap, isn't it? The trap is always looking to cut costs from the stuff that directly faces the customer, maybe reducing support hours or using cheaper materials that end up breaking more often.
Right.
The win-win requires thinking more holistically about the whole system.
So what was that specific win-win example we saw in the material? It sounded pretty clever.
It was brilliant, actually. So the AOM led an initiative to consolidate a bunch of low-volume SKUs, just simplify the inventory complexity overall.
Okay, makes sense. Less stuff to manage.
Exactly. But then they leveraged the increased purchasing volume they now had on the remaining SKUs to negotiate a much better packaging rate with their supplier.
Ah, okay, so direct cost saving there.
Yep, that move alone saved 14% in cost of goods sold. Clear financial win. But here's the kicker. The new packaging supplier they negotiated with, they provided sturdier, better quality materials, which meant that the change simultaneously reduced product damages during shipping by 20%.
Wow. So the cost saving actually resulted in a better, less frustrating experience for the customer. No damaged goods.
Precisely. That's true operational excellence. Finding those systemic improvements where cost and quality aren't trade-offs.
That really is the kind of synergy that sets a top operator apart.
Okay, let's wrap up with culture and communication discipline. How does an AOM actively help shape a team culture that's, accountable, but also inclusive, and maybe most importantly, genuinely experiment-friendly, where it's okay to try things and sometimes fail? Yeah, culture is huge. They have to champion both radical transparency and psychological safety.
How do you do that?
Well, transparency might mean introducing public dashboards, making goals and real-time results visible to everyone. That drives accountability.
Okay.
Psychological safety means actively, publicly celebrating the learnings from failures, not just cheering for the wins. That encourages experimentation. And critically, it means running blameless retrospectives after something goes wrong.
Blameless.
Blameless. The entire focus of the discussion has to be on the process and the system improvements needed, not on whose fault it was. That builds genuine ownership and makes people willing to flag problems early.
Got it. And finally, how do they keep leadership informed without drowning them in operational details? What does that disciplined reporting cadence look like for a sharp AOM?
Discipline is absolutely paramount here. The ideal seems to be a highly structured weekly dashboard. Keep it concise.
Right.
Covering only 3 core sections seems best. 1, KPIs versus targets, basically. Where are we? 2, risks and blockers, what's stopping us or slowing us down, and who owns fixing it. And 3, upcoming milestones, where are we going next?
Simple, clear.
Simple, clear. And critically, this dashboard is always paired with a concise narrative like the story behind the numbers, and if needed, a single, clear ask for a decision from leadership. It's all about providing clarity without the operational noise. Hashtag, tag, outro.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive into what's essentially an AOM interview blueprint. It's really revealed that the modern operations leader has to be so much more than just a process manager.
Definitely.
They're part scientist, right?
Yeah.
Relentlessly applying frameworks like DMAIC, using KPIs like leading indicators, quantifying everything with rigor.
Yeah, and they're part diplomat, too. Successfully navigating that conflict between, say, ops and sales or influencing engineering without any direct authority, using that data as their sort of universal language.
And maybe the most surprising part, they're also part anthropologists, actively shaping the team's culture. Balancing those aggressive goals and the need for clear accountability with creating the freedom people need to run those small-scale rapid experiments.
Being structured but also highly adaptable.
Exactly. It's about being structured but adaptable.
Absolutely. The role demands this really unique marriage of rigor and agility, which actually leads us nicely into our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
The most challenging part of this AOM role, it might not be solving the problems that are put in front of you. It might actually be defining those reversible process boundaries we talked about earlier. Explain.
Well, how do you maintain that firm, maybe non-negotiable commitment to ambitious SLAs, or that concrete plan to cut cycle time by 30% while simultaneously protecting your team's capacity, their bandwidth, to pivot, to run small experiments, to learn quickly without fear of major consequences if it doesn't pan out?
How do you marry that intense operational rigor with genuine agility? That feels like the true ongoing operational challenge.
Marrying rigor with agility. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.